After RPGs, it's high time to check what were the best DOS point-and-click adventure games. Naturally by year, same as last, and according to MobyGames users too. And I've gathered them all up on a stipulation that they're strictly point-and-click adventures, so no text parser or menu-driven games. There may be a video released for this separately in the future though. And if you thought that the last video was one series heavy, this one's gonna favor a particular dev, but deservedly so. So let's jump straight in. Deja Vu: A Nightmare Comes True was a pretty innovative point-and-click adventure game for its time. It worked off an engine that resembled window-based interface of operating systems of yesteryear and used verbs to control the interactions. Other than that, it offered full drag and drop, years earlier than the actual real-life Windows did, meaning any item pickups could be done by mouse by dragging them in or out of inventory. Additionally, a concept of dropping items anywhere in the game was pretty novel too, as they did not despawn, and if you only remember where you left them, you could come back for them at any time. But despite being pretty cool, it's not all that made the game popular. Deja Vu was a heavy and dark noir story. You're an Xboxer turned private investigator who wakes up in a random bar's bathroom with an unexpected amnesia and a dead body in front of you. Unexpected amnesia. Jesus, how does expected amnesia looks like then? I think I know actually. I'm displaying the symptoms whenever my boss's wife talks to me. I expect not to recall anything of what she said later, as it's both mean and usually rather stupid. So my brain does what it does best and filters the trash through, only leaving sour taste of her presence in my memories. Anyway, cause I'm trailing off the subject a little, the dead body you found was clearly killed using your own gun, and that is a serious problem. So, you're after both your lost memories and a true killer to clear your name. All that while avoiding the mob and the law, both bent on grabbing you ASAP. What's important though is that the game did not use any supernatural reasons for whatever's happening, meaning you could use logic and deduction to solve all of its puzzles. If you've never played it, Deja Vu is a true gem and a title definitely worth experiencing. How does one follow one of the most important games of the decade? Most would try to repeat the formula, change bits and pieces, but not so much that the final product would be distinctively different. So, you wanna add content, keep what works and remove what does not. And that's precisely what LucasArts did with McKracken and the alien Mindbenders. A second point-and-click adventure game after a brilliant and groundbreaking Maniac mansion to use the Scum engine. The game is a B-movie-like comedic retelling of a highly unlikely sci-fi story that's over the top but in the same time unexpectedly captivating. You're McKracken, tabloid reporter, and you have to stop evil aliens who are reducing people's intelligence by use of a global telephone system. What a premise. Clearly, LucasArts aimed to make sure that Sierra's universe-saving space janitor was not the only unlikely hero on our hard drives. Anyway, unlike Maniac Mansion, Zack's mission is not confined to a single building and its surrounding areas only, but will take you on a crazy roller coaster of an adventure all around the world, as the danger posed by the aliens' evil plan is universal and not personal. Same as in previous game though, Zack will have co-heroes to help him. Annie, Melissa and Leslie, and many of the puzzles have different solutions depending how and by whom they are approached. Personally, I still prefer Maniac Mansion to Zack, but since it's a list of best point-and-click adventure games picked by a world of gamers and not myself, I'll only say that in my opinion, while it's perhaps not as good of a game as Maniac Mansion was, it's only a tiny, itty-bitty bit weaker, and following a masterpiece is a difficult task for anyone. Even Ron Gilbert. I mean, look at Batman. He's a top-class superhero, spiky ears, gadgets, deep voice, bottomless fortune, cape and all. He seems to be set for success. And yet, how could he even hope to try to stack up against you? He works in Gotham, you've saved countless universes. There's no comparison really. Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade by LucasArts is one of the best point-and-click adventure games of its generation, and the third title to use the revolutionary at the time Scum engine. The plot of the game closely follows and expands upon the one of the movie it's based on, so it's 1938 and Indy along with his father are trying to prevent Adolf H, who for the YouTube algorithm reasons will remain nameless, from getting the mythical Holy Grail. And since LucasArts was chock full of talented folks, they decided to tackle the biggest issue of all adventure games on the market, so replayability. And they've done so by introducing IQ. No, not the one you use to solve worldwide crises, but the so-called Indy quotient, with a maximum score of 800. IQ score is retained upon completing, restarting or reloading the game, and a complete playthrough does not secure even close to a full point score. You have to complete the game more than once, finding alternate solutions to many of the puzzles. Additionally, since Indy is an action hero, the game features many action scenes that help to keep you on the edge of the seat all throughout the game. Naturally, in time with the next few of their games, LucasArts perfected the replayability formula, but this one's their first effort and as such it was not that bad. even if not offering much new content. Unlike most other of their titles, in The Last Crusade you can actually kill Indy. Well, not kill yourself that is, but if you pick a wrong dialogue choice in a cliffhanger of a moment, or fail in an action sequence, Indy may end up being killed and or die. It's not a mechanic I like in my adventure games, but I suppose that it was thematically fitting to the story and will keep you thinking about your choices. It's not a Monkey Island game after all. But since we're on a subject... 1990 was a year of the monkey. Actually, scratch that, I'm not familiar with Chinese astrology, so it might have not been. But it kinda was anyway, because MobyGames users picked Secret of the Monkey Island as the best game for the year, and by extension of that, best point-and-clicker too. And good, because it's by far the best game in the genre in the early 90s, in my opinion. And I will defend the notion for as long as I can or have to. There were games released before, in the same time and after. None came close to this brilliant gem. And I feel that short of much newer Life is Strange Before the Storm and Detroit Become Human titles, Monkey Island is still the best adventure game on any of the systems to date, although entirely different than the newer three I just mentioned. Ron Gilbert is naturally the iconic mastermind behind Monkey's incredible story, and truth be told, most other early LucasArts adventure games too. Secret of the Monkey Island places you in the shoes of Guybrush Threepwood, a hero in the making and a young pirate wannabe, and he will do anything to become one. Cause you know, follow your dreams, don't give up on them, aim for the target, be the best, blah 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 blah. That's why. At least that's what his Instagram profile is saying. So, he sets out on an adventure that will see him completing series of challenging and often hilarious pirate trails, finding love of his life in definitely least expected place, and fighting against the terrifying ghost pirate LeChuck, who seems to be suffering from a constant constipation judging by how he acts. The game's filled with humor to the brim, so much so that it's leaking to all aspects of gameplay, so most puzzles are based on funny interactions, either between characters or objects. Your tasks/adventures are just out of this world, and situations you'll find yourself in are a comedy magic. Like the now famous sword fighting scene, for instance, where you have to defeat the Great Sword Master, seemingly deadly and undefeated, but unless you played the game before, you wouldn't know going for it that it's not your typical battle of strength and dexterity, but rather a challenge of witty remarks and roasts. Monkey Island looks great, it sounds incredible, I mean the title tune is an instant earworm, and on top of that, it's incredibly atmospheric and has an amazing and captivating laughs-filled plot. If you've never played it, pause this video and do so. It's worth it. As easy as it was for the first Monkey Island to take the title of the best point-and-clicker in 1990, second, LeChuck's Revenge took it in 1991. While it's not as influential as the first game was, it's still nearly as good and one of the very best point-and-click adventure games ever released. Period. Once again, your Guybrush Threepwood, who's finally a pirate. Yay! Well, there's that at least. Perhaps a pirate that other pirates laugh at, often right in his face, but a pirate nonetheless. And this time, you're on a quest to find the Big Whoop. A legendary treasure that's said to be the bigger, better, more elusive and treasurer than all the richest of the richest. Yep, one of those is not a word. Who cares? Anyway, I'm sure that the title gave it away, but once more you'll face the evil LeChuck, this time zombified, brought back to life as an undead by his subordinates. Equally as mean, constipated and deadly. Not necessarily in that order. Many things have been improved since the last game, from graphics that have a bit more animated movie look to them, featuring beautiful hand-painted backgrounds and more detailed character sprites, through LucasArts' new iMuse system, synchronizing music to the on-screen action, all the way to the modernization of the interface and more cinematic feel of the adventure. The traditional for the series swashbuckling comedy atmosphere is still omnipresent and will keep you laughing from start to finish. So, if you are hoping to eat some cup noodles while playing, I seriously discourage you from doing so, as you'll have noodles hanging from your nose, going up and down it while chucking at funny jabs in the dialogues or unexpected interactions between the characters. Monkey Island 2, same as its predecessor, is not just a game. It's an experience that all gamers, regardless of what their favorite genres are, should dive into at least once. Indiana Jones and the Fate of Atlantis is what the fourth movie in the Indies series should have been. There is a new one now, Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, but I've not seen it yet. I have high hopes though. Anyway, Fate of Atlantis was arguably the most ambitious and biggest in scope out of all LucasArts' adventure games at the time of its release. Armed with his iconic whip, unquestionable courage and his troublesome wits, Indy partners up with his old friend, a beautiful red-haired Sophia. Together they must embark on an awesome and filled with dangers to the brim adventure, looking for the long-lost continent of Atlantis. While the puzzles are quite tough in this one, demanding sharp thinking and observational skills, they are not illogical as in many other point-and-click games, so you should never really be left in a situation where you'd have to get into trial and error frenzy. Most of them are inventory-based, though some may be reliant on picking up the right dialogues in conversations too. A very unique at the time feature was the ability to complete the game in one of 3 different ways, aka paths that you get to follow. So, somewhere around the early mid-game you can choose one of the 3. The team path, the wits path, and the fists path. First, we'll allow Indy to take Sophia Hapgood with him, and she will provide support all throughout the adventure. Second, adds more puzzles and always presents more complex and challenging versions of them. It's the de facto hard mode of the game. And finally, the fists path focuses on action sequences and fist fighting, which in itself is completely optional in the first 2. On top of that, there are also 3 entirely different endings, a good one and 2 bad ones, so Fate of Atlantis, unlike most adventure games even today, offers a lot of replayability. I'm sure that you noticed me implying it as I was talking about the game, but since I've not said it out loud, let me make that clear here and now. Most of all, Indiana Jones and the Fate of Atlantis is fun, and that's what's most important here. 1992 was a big year for gaming. Many now considered classics came out and gamers had their hands full of awesome titles to complete. But among point-and-clickers, there were no better games than Indy. Remember how our RPG list was dominated by Origins Ultima games? Same here, but with LucasArts. And Maniac Mansion Day of the Tentacle is a well-deserved sequel to 1987's Maniac Mansion and an excellent point-and-click adventure in its own right. Purple Tentacle accidentally drank some of the contaminated water spilling from the odd pipes sticking out of the titular mansion, like hay sticks out of horses' droppings, so randomly and in all directions, and as a result of that, he mutated into superior in terms of dexterity and intellect Tentacle. He grew hands, perhaps without opposing thumbs, but hands nonetheless, and with his new abilities, he now aims to take over the world. Dr. Fred, a villain from the first game, now a concern by the turn of this unfortunate event's senior citizen, sends trio of our heroes, Bernard, Hoagie and Laverne, a day into the past to prevent the incident. But since the time travel, as we all know very well today, obviously requires a use of a diamond, and Dr. Fred, being cheap as he is, substituted it with a fake, our heroes are accidentally sent into different periods of time, both past and future. They're in a proverbial pickle. So the adventure takes place in the very same place but in 3 different time periods, and it's up to you not only to save the world but also eventually get all 3 characters back together in the present. Many of the puzzles are based on an interesting mechanic where you have to send objects between different times, utilizing the time machine to solve them. So you really have to think creatively in this one if you're not using a walkthrough. It's something I've not seen in any other game. But I shouldn't be surprised really, as most of the new design or mechanic ideas introduced by LucasArts' games at the time were either the first overall in gaming or genre-defining changes. Naturally, as in most titles by the giant of the genre, the humor is Day of the Tentacle's strongest suit. And while it's seemingly everywhere behind every interaction or dialogue, it doesn't get in the way of the incredible B-movie plot, and complements it all the way through. To summarize, Day of the Tentacle is amazing. Pause this video, waste no more time, and go and play it. Or don't actually, cause I have a few more years still to cover. But do it straight after. Deathgate is a point-and-click fantasy adventure based on the best-selling novels by Margaret Weis and Tracy Hickman. 2000 years ago, the world was split into 5 realms, all by the hands of an advanced and evil race known only as Sartan. Oh man, we were just a few mere letters away from Cyan and we would have had the Dragon Ball saga on our hands. Oh well, whatever, it is what it is. So, the humans, dwarves and elves were split between 4 of these worlds named for the 4 elements, and the race of Patrin were banished to the deadly labyrinth. 2000 years have passed in a heartbeat for the humanoids living in the comforting warmth of the sunlight, but Patrin were constantly struggling to find a way out. Eventually, they sorta did. You play as Haplo, a young Patrin that's given a quest by his Lord Exar to travel through the Death Gate into each of the worlds to find their seal pieces so that the planet could be reconstructed and so Patrins could have their revenge on Sartan. Death Gate for the most part plays like the most other first-person adventures, so you travel around different locations, find and use items, converse with characters and solve various puzzles, many of which are inventory-based and some will require use of magic. Magic that's heavily integrated into the entire gameplay and games engine too. Same as it was in original book's story. Apparently, as I've never read the books nor played Deathgate, but from what I've seen and read about it online, it's clear that it's a hidden gem. Not only it features captivating and excellently written story, but also different, novel and not unfairly difficult puzzles and a very high production value, with full SVGA presentation, nice animations and expertly recorded voice acting. If you like adventure games, don't sleep on it, and if you don't, give it a go anyway, it may be something down your alley. I should really find some time to check it out myself too, shouldn't I? By 1995, LucasArts were undisputed king, queen and a whole royal crowd when it came to slowly dying genre of point-and-click adventure games. And to be frank, there were hardly any other companies that could realistically compete with them on the same level. Full Throttle was their flagship for 1995 and a game that was supposed to shake the pre-established gameplay and interface formula that LucasArts years before defined for the whole genre. The game is much more like a full-motion cartoon than any other before, featuring many fully animated cutscenes and streamlining interface and puzzles to suit this new form. From the story side, it made it easier to follow and complete as it was more linear and used simpler puzzles, with easier to comprehend set of just few actions available to perform. One of them famously being a kick, as in a game about bikers, there had to be a kick, right? And trust me, you're going to be using it left and right, spreading Krusty Hill justice all around. If not for puzzling, then to have a laugh. All coins have two sides though, and this one does too. While Full Throttle was easier for an average player and more welcoming to those who were not intimate with the genre, it also alienated hardcore fans a little. As for them, it radiated that uncanny feeling of being just a set of very simplistic, usually single location contained puzzles that were there just to get you from one cutscene to another. Personally, I don't mind it at all, as I have deep appreciation for all LucasArts titles, but I definitely am not in the majority. Still, if you're on the fence about it, it's worth having a go at it, as despite being simpler, it's pretty fun. Broken Sword: The Shadow of the Templars, aka The Circle of Blood, is an excellent modern point-and-click adventure game and the first part of the series that very quickly gained huge popularity and in time a cult following. Deservedly so, I must add, even if it came out in the time when I was on a few years long hiatus from adventure games. That said, it's one of the very few adventure game series that could be compared to early LucasArts point-and-clickers, so to the absolute best of the best in the genre. And no wonder, as the developer, Revolution Software, was responsible for earlier Beneath a Steel Sky and Lure of the Temptress titles, both incredible games in their own rights. Broken Sword places you in shoes of George Stobbart, an American tourist in Paris who barely escapes with his life after seemingly random bombing of a cafe he was in. Well, nearby. As a result of that, he decides to investigate the clues left behind by the killer dressed as a clown. It appears that the culprit only ever aimed to kill an old man sitting there and steal his briefcase. This unforeseen chain of events from then onward will take you on a hell of an adventure all around Europe and Middle East, where with help of Nicole Collard, French journalist who was supposed to meet with the old man, you will attempt to unravel a deep conspiracy involving a sinister cult and a hidden treasure. Broken Sword's story is incredibly captivating, the pacing is brilliantly balanced, and the serious subject and tone of the plot is nicely countered by the humor and beautiful graphics. I mean, the backgrounds alone are the works of art, not to mention the character sprites that not only look but also animate in such quality and style that it's hard to believe that they're part of the game and not ripped from an animated movie. All that, coupled with excellent voice acting and well-fitting music tracks, lends to Broken Sword easily grabbing MobyGames' users' hearts by the balls, or by the arteries really, and taking the cake for 1996. And it's not surprising in the slightest, as Broken Sword managed to claim numerous nominations, awards and countless praises from both critics and gamers alike. If you're at all into adventure games and never heard of it, definitely check it out, today if possible. The Last Express is a real-time point-and-click adventure set in 1914, just before the outbreak of the World War. You play as American, Dr. Robert Cuff, who accepts an invite from a friend to join him on the Orient Express. You accept and get on the train with style too, and I mean it, you're literally jumping on it from your motorcycle, escaping the authorities as a suspect in a murder you did not commit. Naturally, from the moment you accept to the moment you jump on the train, a little time has passed, but I'm simplifying it for the sake of this video. If that all wasn't enough, and your life wasn't full of odd happenings, when you finally get on the train, you find the body of a friend of yours, also killed. So, to escape the suspicion of two murders now, you decide to disguise yourself as the dead man. And all that is just the beginning of the roller coaster of treachery, lies, political conspiracies, personal interests, romance and murder, all aboard the train. Even though The Last Express was not commercial success upon its release, it gained highly positive reviews from both gamers and professionals alike, not in small part thanks to its non-linear story and a real-time gameplay, and it guaranteed this 1997 spot on the list. While most of the gameplay is experienced from the first-person perspective, all of the cutscenes are in the third person. The time keeps running constantly and in real time, albeit by a factor of 6. Many of the events in the game are scripted and run on a schedule too, so you have to keep track of the in-game time and their own train locations to be able to witness them as they take place. The game features over 30 individual unique characters, all with their own artificial intelligence and agendas. So when talking to them, you always have to keep in mind that they're after their personal goals first and anything else later. The Last Express offers staggering 30 quote-unquote bad endings, 4 alternate neutral ones and one that's considered the true ending. The game may have not been a commercial success, but it's definitely worth not only your attention, but also a full playthrough. Especially that 1997 was the last year fully commercial professional adventure games were released for DOS, as it was slowly phasing off from minds of devs as a viable gaming platform. Cendric's Quest is a first-person point-and-click adventure game and a prequel to 1994's Serpent Head, telling a story of Cendric the Mage, reassembling the Center Scepter parts into an item that was crucial in the story of the original title. Cendric's plot can be considered to be a part of the introduction to the first game. 5 generations ago, during the War with Dragons, a scepter was instrumental in defeating the evil sorcerer Saloran in the battle with the Royal Mage of Fios. Saloran, however, was not killed but fled to lay in hiding and plot his revenge. After protecting the kingdom, Fios hid the scepter parts in magically protected boxes in the castle Irongate, to avoid having them fall in the wrong hands again. Years have passed, however, and the good mage has died from an old age. Saloran, however, has magically prolonged his life, extending it beyond years achievable by a mere mortal, and is now plotting his comeback to try to take the kingdom once more. You play as Cendric, a royal mage and a descendant of the Ophios, and after having a very vivid dream predicting Saloran's return, you decide to reassemble the Serpent Scepter to defend the kingdom. So, you need to find 3 golden boxes in a castle Irongate, recover the parts from them, and make the weapon whole again. Gameplay-wise, you will be mainly exploring the castle, solving puzzles, and avoiding dangers and traps set by Saloran. Sure, release of Cendric's Quest ends after recovering the first box, and the other 2 are unlocked upon purchase. It released on DOS and Windows concurrently, and other than some of the graphics, the gameplay is identical for both. And since we're on the subject, presentation is not Cendric's strongest suit, and it looks rather disappointing. The story is decent though, so if you're into adventure titles at all, there's definitely something here to keep you playing. Oh, and there's no DOS footage anywhere, so I had to use one for Windows. But they're basically identical. It's clear that LucasArts dominated the adventure scene on PC. I mean, deservedly so, as they made the best point-and-click games, but the number of their titles compared to others is just staggering. Other than 1988, where I would have picked Maniac Mansion, and 1995, where I'd lean towards Discworld, I'd say that the list made by MobyGames users is pretty spot on. What do you think of it though? Anything you'd change, or were MobyGame users right in their choices? Let me know in the comments below. If you liked the video, hit those like and subscribe buttons below. Smash them if you have to, it helps more than you could ever know. Also, I would like to thank you and all my amazing Patreon and YouTube members for helping this channel keep going. And last but definitely not least, I would like to thank all the wonderful folks who record and upload playthroughs, let's plays and other retro-centric videos here on YouTube, because they help to preserve the games that would have otherwise be long forgotten. So thank you.